welcome to another folklore video. Today is going to be kind of a two-in-one, so we're going to have a bit of Irish folklore with a poem mixed in. So throughout the Northern Ireland countryside there is a tree. Not just one tree, but many of these trees dotted around. And these trees are unharmed through generations, and these trees guard each a special place. And these are known as the Fairy Thorn. Now most of these trees are hawthorn trees, and they're more associated with or nearby the old archaeological sites such as grave mounds or chambered graves and wedge tombs. And they could also stand beside deep underground wells or natural springs. And then most of them were adopted when Christianity came along as holy sites. But before they were holy sites, these belonged to nature. Now in some places where these trees are, there is no grave, there is no underground well, there is no sort of pagan origin. These trees may just guard a small hill on the ground. A fairy hill, as it were. A gateway to the fairy realm, an entry into the world of the fairy folk. Now such special trees as this have a remarkable power. Often growing in harsh rocky ground, these trees are survivors of harsh winds, of man, and have come to have their own special strength. And stories in folklore still abound about what happens to people when they disturb such ancient trees, or trees with such ancient heritage. So what we're going into today is there is a poem by Samuel Ferguson about the Fairy Thorn. And I'm going to read a quote direct from the man himself. I remember well the night I wrote it. I was in London keeping my terms, and long after midnight, when all was silent in the great city and the house in which I lodged, I projected my thoughts into fairyland and felt its mystery and awe. When the poem was completed, my imagination was so excited that I still felt as if under a spell. I could hardly move. At last I shook myself free and with an effort got into bed. Next morning I could not explain to myself the supernatural terrors of the night, nor the impression made on my mind. And I quite like that as having a quote direct from the author of such a poem, that the folklore or the magic of the night took such a hold of his imagination that when he wrote this poem, it was like an out-of-body experience. And so, stay with me for the poem of the Fairy Thorn. Get up, our Anna dear, from the weary spinning wheel, for your father's on the hill and your mother is asleep. Come up above the crags and we'll dance a Highland reel around the Fairy Thorn on the steep. At Anna Grace's door 'twas thus the maidens cried, three merry maidens fair in kirtles of the green, and Anna laid the rock and the weary wheel aside, the fairest of the four, I ween. They're glancing through the glimmer of the quiet eve, away in milky wavings of neck and ankle bare, the heavy sliding stream in its sleepy song they leave, and the crags in the ghostly air. And, linking hand in hand and singing as they go, the maids along the hillside have taken their fearless way, till they come to where the rowan trees in lonely beauty grow, beside the fairy hawthorn grey. The hawthorn stands between the ashes tall and slim, like matron with her twin granddaughters at her knee. The rowan berries cluster o'er her low head grey and dim, in ruddy kisses sweet to see. The merry maidens four have ranged them in a row, between each lovely couple a stately rowan stem, and away in mazes wavy like skimming birds they go, oh never carolled bird like them. But solemn is the silence of the silvery haze, that drinks away their voices in echoless repose, and dreamily the evening had stilled the haunted braes, and dreamier the gloaming grows. and sinking one by one like lark notes from the sky, when the falcon's shadow saileth across the open shore, are hushed the maidens' voices as cowering down they lie, in the flutter of their sudden awe. For from air above and the grassy ground beneath, and from the mountain ashes and the old white thorn between, a power of faint enchantment doth through their beings breathe, and they sink down together on the green. They sink together silent and stealing side by side. They fling their lovely arms over their drooping necks so fair, then vainly strive again their naked arms to hide, for their shrinking necks again are bare. Thus clasped and prostrate all, with their heads together bowed, soft o'er their bosoms beating the only human sound, they hear the silky footsteps of the silent fairy crowd, like a river in the air gliding round. No scream can any raise, no prayer can any say, but wild, wild the terror of the speechless three, for they feel fair Anna Grace drawn silently away, by whom they dare not look to see. They feel their tresses twine with her parting locks of gold, and the curls elastic falling as her head withdraws. They feel her sliding arms from their tranced arms unfold, but they may not look to see the cause. For heavy on their senses the faint enchantment lies, through all that night of anguish and perilous amaze, and neither fear nor wonder can ope their quivering eyes, or their limbs from the cold ground raise. Till out of night the earth has rolled her dewy side, with every haunted mountain and streamy vale below, when as the mist dissolves in the yellow morning tide, the maiden's trance dissolveth so. Then fly the ghastly three as swiftly as they may, and tell their tale of sorrow to anxious friends in vain. They pined away and died within the year and day, and never was Anna Grace seen again.